Welcome to Midnight Menu Plus One. I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margo Moss. Midnight Menu Plus One is a food lifestyle show on the podcast network, itsneworleans.com.
Each week on Midnight Menu Plus One, Margo and I invite a member of New Orleans restaurant and food community to join us, and we invite them to bring along their own guest, a plus one. We never know who the plus one's going to be. Sometimes it's a friend, a neighbor, a family member, a fellow restaurant colleague. Tonight, our special guest, we're very excited, Margo, on Midnight Menu Plus One, is Tim Harlan, Dr. Gourmet, and we'll be speaking to him in just a moment.
And if you're hungry for more Midnight Menu Plus One than we can dish out here, we have all kinds of extra stuff like recipes, guest gossip, sneak peeks into who's coming up next week, and much more on our website, itsneworleans.com. On itsneworleans.com, you can check out our blog, sign up for our newsletter, and you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Or you can just Google Midnight Menu Plus One, and we come right up. Tonight's show is brought to us by our friends at Magic Box Toys.
And also Petite Pet Care. If you need someone to look after your pets while you're at work or school, if your pet would rather stay home than go to a kennel or a doggy daycare, Petite Pet Care has you covered. Loving care when you're not there, petitepetcare.com.
Magic Box Toys have a bunch of very cool and hip stuff, as well as the classics like Legos and Melissa and Doug. You can find them online at magicboxneworleans.com or in real life on Magazine Street near Jefferson Avenue. When you go to Magic Box Toys, you can experience the magic by telling them Ray and Margo sent you from Midnight Menu Plus One and get 10% off everything in the store.
Awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to talking with Tim Harlan, Dr. Gourmet. But before we do that, let's catch up on this week's culinary adventures. I've had about 1,000, but my most interesting one happened just a few hours ago. I dined with John Besh.
Nice.
Well, I mean, if by dining with him,
it was a personal invite.
Well, more like stalking, But I went to the new Pizza Domenica, which is, everybody's going berserk over. And I tried to go the other night, and there was a line out the door. And I learned from a friend who was part of the line that it took him 2 hours to get in, which is, a testament to how popular the place is. People have been dying for it to be there. But I went by today, and it was a weekday, and I went really early at 11 when they opened, and we were the only ones in there. And so we went in. And I saw John Besh over at the table, so I sat at the table next to him, even though the room was empty. And
with him, in his presence.
Yeah,
okay, I'm seeing.
Pretty close.
I'm understanding now.
But here's what happened. Elon Shaya, who was an early supporter of our show, the executive chef there. It was Chef of the Year last year in New Orleans Magazine. I think he's been a Beard nominee. Mm-hmm. He was, our fourth or fifth guest in the show when we first got started and was real supportive of us. He recognized me right away and came over and asked how the show was going and all that kind of stuff. And it was real nice. I took a picture with him for the show. We'll post that on
Did they cut off your
website.
Pompadour, you think?
No, because Grant Morris didn't take the picture,
okay.
So my Pompadour remained, I believe.
Okay.
But and then Mr. Besh was very polite. I'd met him before for my movie or whatever, but he pretended to remember me, and he was very nice and real pleasant. And by the way, the food was phenomenal.
Did you sit at the table and eat with them?
No, I was like 2 tables over because they were having a business meeting and stuff.
Okay.
But I took my crazy stalker pictures like I do. Those ones I have of all the celebrities in Whole Foods. So I took a lot of pictures. Elon Shaya posed with me. John Besh smiled and watched, and then I took creepy pictures of him from a distance after that. But maybe we can post those too if our legal department will allow us. Anyway, that was a lot of fun, but I'm very interested now in talking to our guest, unless you have any other incredible culinary adventures this week, too.
No, I would prefer to. I can't top that, and I'm too excited. I would like to get to Dr. Harlan.
Well, Dr. Timothy Harlan, a lot of our listeners will be familiar with him. He's executive director for the Goldring Center for Culinary Medicine. As a TV celebrity, Timothy Harlan has been known as the on-air expert for the Food Network show Cooking Thin, and also the host of DIY cooking show, Ask DIY. That stands for Do It Yourself, Dr. Gourmet is an Emmy Award winning. He's our first Emmy Award winner on the show, I think. We've had Beard Awards, we've had other awards. We've never had an Emmy Award winner. Emmy Award winning broadcaster who has been featured regularly on CNN, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, as well as other top media outlets. So with that, I'm sure there's a much longer resume than that, but I'd like to get speaking to him. So welcome. Glad you're here.
Thanks. It's not that interesting a resume, actually. But thanks. And what's a Pompadour thing?
Oh, a pompadour is my hair.
I see. I wasn't sure what you mean by Pompadour.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I have a little southern drawl on it.
that helped everything, so.
He looks like
it.
this year round, and it's a beautiful.
It's styling. I have to say, it's a shame that some people, they say, have a face built for radio,
you
but
must
yours
be
is
talking
not.
to my brother.
Yours is not. You should be on television.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Glad
It's
you're
great
here.
to be here.
So, can you please tell our guests what the Tulane Culinary Medicine Institute is and how you are affiliated with that?
The Goldring Center for Culinary Medicine is the world's first fully integrated teaching kitchen at a medical school. So the School of Medicine, my former dean, Ben Sachs, a really brilliant fellow, came to a group of us about 4 years ago and said he wanted to build a teaching kitchen to teach medical students how to cook, which is a neat idea, but hard to figure out what that really means. What are you going to do with that information, and what is the medical student going to do with it, and how do you build the curriculum, and who's going to pay for that, because it's not an inexpensive undertaking, and what do the outcomes look like? I'm an evidence-based physician, so I really care about what, if you teach somebody to do X, does it really have some sort of effect on the patient's health? And, we batted the idea around for 6 months or so, maybe even a little longer. It was really only after, in brainstorming sessions, we came up with the idea that we would actually put this kitchen out in the community. And not only would we teach medical students how to cook, but we would also teach the community how to cook, how to get back into the kitchen, read a recipe, parse a recipe, build a weekly menu, build a shopping list, go to the grocery store, come home, cook, eat healthy. And we as physicians would take ownership of some of the health problems, almost all of the health problems that we have in America today, which are related to diet. So that's how it came to be.
Well, I mean, you're uniquely qualified for that, right? You're not only an Emory-trained physician. You're not like we have a lot of honorifics in this town. We call Dr. John and Professor Longhair. You're a real doctor. You went to Emory, and then you also ran restaurants, right?
Right. So I was a chef before I became a physician. I grew up in the restaurant business. I started washing dishes when I was 11. Back then in the late 60s and early 70s, my mother, I think, figured, you back in the South, then you could go to work as a kid if you had a work permit. Your mom had to sign it, the school had to sign it, and I think my mother figured that she knew where I'd be on Friday and Saturday nights if I went and washed dishes. And by the time I was 18, I managed my first restaurant. I opened my first restaurant at 22. I was a chef owner for about 3 years. I closed that restaurant to go to college, where I had never gone to college before, to get a hotel and restaurant management degree. And I took a wrong turn one day and ended up in medical school.
There's not a ton of hotel and restaurant. I mean, Cornell has a famous one. There's not a ton of programs. Was that at Emory?
There is actually a really great program for specifically a hospitality program at Georgia State University, actually.
Georgia State University,
There's a lot of great programs across the country at state universities. And, it's interesting because at the time, in the late 70s and early 80s, the CIA had only been in business for about 15 years. And Johnson & Wales, who we have a really great relationship with.
Leah Sarris came from there. We've had her on the show, and she works with you.
She does. And they'd only actually had their culinary program for about 5 years at that point. So, culinary schools were a new phenomenon in the late 70s and early 80s in the United States. In fact, I remember interviewing once with a chef for an executive director of a country club for a chef position, and we were talking about this, and this is like late 1970s, and he said, I'd never hire a chef from a culinary school. So we really have kind of, it's been a 180 over the course of the last 20 years with culinary schools in America having a lot of respect.
Well, I mean, it's sort of like a rock star, going to Juilliard or something. It's it seems almost antithetical to the artsiness of it sometimes. But
I think at the time
it seemed that way. Yeah.
I think at the time it was a lot of it had to do, I think, with the traditional apprentice system. That most European chefs who came to America, they grew up in a system where, as you can today, you work for free for 2 years sweeping floors before they ever let you peel a carrot.
Wow.
So, coming from the culinary world and managing and owning a restaurant, working your way up, can you share with us what that turn was to medicine? I mean, how did you make that leap from that world to medicine?
So I owned a little French bistro, and really, cooked mostly continental, as they used to say, and country French cuisine. And my wife at the time was quite ill. She was diagnosed with diabetes at 11, and when we married, she was right at 27. I was 26, and she was facing her first kidney transplant. Actually, she was facing dialysis at the time. Most of the transplant drugs that we have today, like cyclosporin, didn't exist, and so kidney transplantation was not an option in many cases, unless it was a living-related donor. And when we met, I changed everything that I did as far as how I cooked, and became very, very interested in medicine as a result of her. And then while I was in medical school, to kind of bring it full circle, I had a couple of patrons from my restaurant who owned a publishing company in Atlanta, a small niche publishing company that does patient education materials, and they asked me to write my first book. I was a second-year medical student. We published my first book in the fourth year of medical school.
Wow.
Sort of a food manual called It's Heartily Fare, how to eat healthy and for patients with cardiovascular disease. And that was back in the bad old days of nutrition, when we thought things like margarine were good for you. And
So is that book now gone out of print?
actually, that book is not out of print. That book.
Do you wish that book was out of print?
No, actually, I don't. That book has been revised 7 times.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
That book was actually published before there was such a thing as a nutrition facts box on a food label. You turn the package over and there's a little nutrition facts thing on the back. That book was published 2 years before the FDA passed the regulation that all packaged foods had to have nutrition facts labels. And one of the tricks to the book actually was how to read a food label, because back then, if you wanted to know maybe how much sodium or salt or sugar, etc., the only way you could tell was by the list of ingredients, and the list of ingredients is by weight. So when you read a list of ingredients, the first ingredient, that's the one that is the most by weight, by mass. And so that was a lot of the purpose of the book, was to teach people how to read food labels and how to discriminate in the grocery store, et cetera. So not only was it the bad old days of nutrition
what year
research, was 1987.
1987.
That is amazing. That
Now,
is
you'd
so
already-
progressive.
But at that point, I'm not surprised though, because I'm sorry, you already invented the internet, right? Before that?
I had not yet invented the internet. No.
See, we had Al Gore on the show recently, and he was telling us that it says in your website that you've had a website since does it not say that?
No.
Where does it say
Since
it?
1998.
Okay, it says 1984 somewhere.
No. So you...
Wikipedia, that's what does it. Wikipedia
Yeah.
says
See, who
1984.
reads-
Does it really
That
say
is-
1984?
I only read Wikipedia
That's
these days. That's all I have
fantastic.
time for these days. Yeah.
I tell you, when you give medical students or students a project today and they cite Wikipedia, it just makes my hair catch fire.
Yeah, it's
it
should be banned in any accredited school.
I was trying to cut
save
you
me?
off because I just...
No,
it
actually,
makes
it's even
me
worse.
crazy even to look to that. But
No, it's even a little bit worse than that, isn't it, Margo? Not only did it was worse than I actually read Wikipedia. I didn't even read the Wikipedia. I listened to someone else who read the Wikipedia. So I got
not sure-
Wikipedia secondhand. The only thing worse than Wikipedia is Wikipedia secondhand.
That's true. But the nice thing about this is I think I know somebody who can edit Wikipedia, and I'm going to have them go change the 1984 to 1964.
So something good came
So
out of this.
if we
Nice.
change it, if we change it to 64, then I will have certainly invented the internet.
Nice.
Which is kind of a nice thing to do also, and put something to put on my CV.
Well, it's a lot for Al Gore.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
But that
we
really-
digress.
No. That we can digress as much as you are comfortable with, as long as we don't offend you.
We could be
and
here
we
a
can-
long time.
Well, we're hoping to get some juicy stuff too, and not have you run screaming from.
Oh no.
But so getting back to you, so you did that when you were in
Medical school.
medical
yes, ma'am.
school, and this may be a little off question, but when you were experiencing that and in medical school, did you or have you been influenced by any other cultures, medicinal background, or you didn't?
I am, and you know, much to some people's chagrin, I think I am not. I'm a Western physician. I'm not an alternative medicine physician. I don't, and most complementary medicine, as it were, whatever you want to call it, you know, is not very valid.
Okay.
I'm an evidence-based physician. I believe in randomized controlled trials. I believe in good quality observational epidemiologic data, and you know, everything that I do at drgourmet.com, everything that I write about, all of the work that we do and the curriculum that we build for the community, for the medical students, for the residents, for the practicing physician, all of that is evidence-based medicine. And so, no,
Okay.
I don't believe in Chinese herbalism, for instance. And I don't believe in it because there's no evidence for it. And there is actually evidence mostly to the contrary. Unfortunately, I think you know, the challenge oftentimes in my business is that people for years and years in medicine, up until about 1985, 1990, you know, if it made sense, they did it, or if it felt good, or a doctor felt like, oh, you know, this is a good idea, and they did it and they got good results, then they just keep doing it without evidence. It's kind of interesting phenomenon. If you went into a hospital with a heart attack in the mid-1950s, it was really likely that someone would crack your chest open, peel off the pericardium, the lining around your heart, and throw it in the trash and stitch you back up.
That's the solution.
That's what they did. They thought, oh, you know, there's inflammation of the pericardium. We're going to throw your pericardium in the trash, and no evidence whatsoever. So we don't do that in medicine today. We really strive, I think, very hard to be evidence-based, and it's not perfect. Science is evolving, as science is always going to do. But we, you know, so I try very hard to use the best evidence, and you know, that evidence has evolved. I think there was a time where many of us believed, from the best evidence possible, that a low-fat diet was a good idea. Right. We now know that was wrong. I mean, very wrong, and actually pro-inflammatory, and actually bad for you. You know, and that's a challenge in my business. It's a challenge in medicine because, you know, what you learned, you know, yesterday, if it's subjected to thoughtful scrutiny, might not be true tomorrow.
And on your site, Dr. Gourmet, it is fascinating to me because it's so accessible, but it is very intense information. It's a lot of research, and it feels very serious and scholarly, but it's accessible.
Well, you know, that may be the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not, that's no
You're around a
exaggeration.
lot of mean people, aren't you?
I do have
Just keep hanging around Margo. She
No,
loves,
actually,
she's a great flatterer.
I will say, Margo, that is actually probably the nicest thing that anybody's ever said to me. Sue Pritchett and Nancy Hull, who owned the publishing firm Pritchett and Hull, my first publishers, they taught me, I mean, I owe them tremendously for what they taught me in how to write for the lay public, that these are complex issues as far as nutrition, as far as medicine is concerned. So that's just really sweet of you to say that to me.
Well, I feel that way because honestly, it's intimidating when you go to a doctor. For most people, doctors
I'm pretty intimidating. Do you think I'm intimidating, Leah?
A lot of people think you're intimidating.
Many people.
Wait a second. We have another voice on the mic.
But
We're going to have to introduce.
it's probably true.
Yeah.
All right,
The
should
veil
we
of secrecy
introduce
has
our
Parted. Yeah.
plus one?
Yep.
since
She just
she's-
sat down. I'm so excited. We
So-
know her already.
Yes, but
Tell her
Dr.
why
Harlan, will
you
tell
brought
us, who your guest is?
This is Chef Leah Sarris.
Yay.
Yay. Chef Leah and I have known each other for about 2.5 years now, and it's been one of the best and most joyous collaborations that I've ever had. When Ben Sachs and I were at Johnson & Wales about 2.5 years ago, we had this concept, and we had some funding to build a teaching kitchen, to build a Center for Culinary Medicine. And when you sit down to write the job description, because I'm not going to run this, I have a day job. So I also practice medicine, and then I'm assistant dean for clinical services at the medical school. I help run our clinical enterprise with a group of very, very talented and fantastic people. And so I needed somebody who could run the center, run the teaching kitchen. And we'd written a job description, which is a tough job description when you think about it. You have to have somebody who's going to, be able to relate to medical students, who's got to build curriculum, who knows something about nutrition, who knows a lot about the culinary side of it, et cetera. And the folks at Johnson & Wales who I had asked repeatedly, you must know someone. You must know someone, please. You have this department of culinary nutrition. You have all these graduates. No, we really can't think of any way. And we're sitting in a meeting, and this had been going on for months that I'd been asking them. We're sitting in this meeting, and Suzanne Vera, who's the chair, who was then the chairman of the Department of Culinary Nutrition, she's like, oh, like there's 20 people in this room, and she's like, I've got it. Everybody's looking at her like, what? We all get up and go traipsing down these long corridors around, and the teaching kitchens, the laboratories as they call them at Johnson & Wales, are all fishbowl. They've all got glass walls, and we stop at this laboratory, and there's Leah, professor at Johnson & Wales, teaching this class, and we're like knocking on the window.
I was in the middle of lecture.
Right in the middle of a lecture, like, hey, come here. And so we essentially, for all intents and purposes, hired Leah on the spot. She went out to dinner with us that night. We took her to dinner with a number of the other faculty from Johnson & Wales, and it's just been amazing. She's perfect for the job. The medical students love her. The community, it can't get enough. It's just been a great collaboration for the last 2 years that we've been working together. So I thought I'd ask Leah.
Now I wonder, is
Thank
it a factor? I've met a lot of university faculty here that were eminently qualified, but the one thing they love where they're teaching, but one thing they complain about is they just don't really, New Orleans is a place you love it or hate it, and it seems like sometimes there needs to be a little more work done on picking people that'll enjoy the weird culture here and the particulars of the culture. And after having her on our show, I can say she's somebody who's really dived into the culture and really seems to enjoy it a lot too. Is that ever a factor when you're hiring folks? Does that even come into the equation? Like with my business, we spend a lot of time actually thinking, is this somebody who will really get this place, who will really like this place, who will be happy here? It's not just like hiring somebody for
I didn't really much
Anytown,
think.
USA.
I don't think I really much thought about it. Leah
I
wanted
added that
to move.
the job description. You got lucky with
Yeah,
her.
it was.
but-
I did get lucky. Leah wanted to move here anyway. Her best friend
Right.
was living
Yeah,
here.
she's
at
been
the
on the
time.
show as well.
And so
April's been on
Yeah.
our show. Is April the only one we've had on twice before Leah?
Yeah,
Now Leah will be
yeah.
twice. Yeah.
I know, I was
you're-
thinking
yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
That's great. That's great.
You're very competitive with her, aren't you?
Apparently.
If you want number
I
three.
gotta go for 3.
So yeah, we it's just been a great relationship. I guess the answer to that question for me is no. I hire people. I started managing when I was 18. I managed my first restaurant at 18, and I don't have very many talents in life, but I have the talent to be able to hire very, very good people, and I think that one of my management styles, I ask a lot of them. Do you think I ask a lot of you? I ask a lot of the people who work for me.
You do, but then you stand back and let me do
I
it.
do. I
So
ask
you
people.
do not micromanage.
No.
You
And there's no. I think my staff in the assistant dean's office would support that. I I let them do their job, and if there's a problem, my friend Harish Sujan, he's not a foodie though, but he's a great business professor. Harish talks about this idea that you're only as good as your people. Obviously, you're only as good as being able to let your people do what they do, and part of your job as a manager is to remove obstacles for the folks that work for you. And so that's how I came to Leah. It's been great, and we open.
Yeah.
We're under construction now. We'll be open in about a month. So
But she's been teaching and you teach there as well. Is that how it works?
I don't teach much. I'm there for a lot at the end of class for the table discussions with the med students. I'm there for most all of the continuing medical education programming.
So when you say you open, that means you open your own facility.
We do. We open. We're under construction on a state-of-the-art 4,500 square foot full-on cooking school. Teaching kitchen. We'll be able to teach 16 to 20 people hands-on cooking at a time. We'll be able to do cooking demonstrations or didactic sessions with full audio-visual for 35 to 50 people at a time. It's a really neat place. It's over the Refresh site where the new Whole Foods is and where Liberty's Kitchen. We all fought very hard for that location. I think the folks at Whole Foods, the Liberty's Kitchen, the Broad Community Connections people, everybody, all of us wanted to be there.
Cool.
And you had to because of the pain we went through to get it. It was a pretty painful process.
So Leah, do you fail people in your class? Like, do you give out grades? They have final exams? How's that work?
It's
People
pass fail.
It's pass fail.
Pass fail.
How many people have you failed so far?
I just publicly shame people when they don't do the work, and it generally works.
How
really
could you not want to
effectively.
do? I mean, if Leah Sarris asked you to do something, how could you not want to do it?
Oh, I know.
That's
Well,
the
let me
beauty
ask
of it.
y'all about this. So, these are medical students. Now, how resistant or excited have they been about being a pioneer in a pioneer program? Has it been?
Well, I'll say that right now it's an elective, so everyone is there on their own accord.
Okay.
And this elective is about 3 times the amount of hourly, hour per hour work from other electives. So
Really?
yeah, they are willingly.
So this is not
but-
the medical school equivalent of basket weaving 101 or
No.
whatever, right? Yeah.
Don't,
okay.
but I think for them it's still a break because they're cooking, they're learning something fun, they're learning a life skill,
Yeah.
and something that they can really use to benefit their practice. And I think that in general, the world is ready for this. They're ready
Yeah.
for medical students, and
Absolutely.
I think they all appreciate that, and they all appreciate being part of this program. A few of them even said that this is why they chose Tulane.
Really?
Yeah, no kidding. How
Yeah.
good is
That's
that?
very cool.
Yeah,
How good is
and-
that?
All right, so you're the only
congratulations,
program
everyone.
like this in the country still. Is that true?
We're the only program in the country like this in that we're the only one with a fully equipped kitchen. There are a lot of medical schools around the country that do some cooking classes like this.
But they're
generally-
usually taught by physicians, though, right? Not by
they
chefs?
could
or-
be,
yeah.
there's a program, Tom Sherman, who's a biochemist at Georgetown. He teaches a program there. Most of it's small footprint, 16 students or 20 students, that sort of thing. We actually are not in a way because we've also licensed our curriculum already. So there's
Lots
two medical
changed.
there's 2 medical schools in Texas who are using our curriculum. They launched this
Really?
past, isn't that cool? They launched this past January.
What do they call it?
I don't know what they call it. They call
a
it
good
culinary
question.
medicine.
Yeah.
Do they
the
call it
culinary
do
medicine.
they call it like the Harlan collection? They
No,
call it like
no,
the Goldring
it is-
collection? They
it
call
is
it the
actually-
Tulane collection? How's it labeled?
It is labeled the Goldring Center for Culinary Medicine. Everything is all of the materials. We serve up all of those materials to them, all of the online didactic lectures, all of the quizzes, all of the recipes, all of the modules. And yes, it is quite branded. We
Nice.
we have branded this, and we know that Rutgers will join in this coming
Awesome.
academic year. We think that at least one other medical school who we've just about to sign an agreement with, and maybe, I think probably by this time next year we'll have at least 6 or 7 of us who are using our curriculum. It's pretty exciting.
Wow.
Huh.
Yeah.
Now, so the students are excited and want to participate. And do you find that chefs, have you ever worked with in a restaurant setting where you implemented, or have you been asked to, in a commercial situation, to help with a menu? Or, I mean, is there any drive to get into that?
Consulting almost.
Well, just to be able to change, I mean, to change the medical, to have the medical students involved in the culinary arts, to me, it also benefits them in the way they deal with patients, correct? Like, if someone comes in with a heart, okay,
that's the goal. So we take the curriculum we've built for the medical students takes the first 2 years of information that the medical students learn, what we call preclinical. It's all basic sciences in the first 2 years of medical school. They get biochemistry and physiology and metabolism, vitamins, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we really use food and cooking as the touchstone to connect the dots between that information that they learn and the dialogue that they're going to have with their patient. And because right now, you go to the doctor, and for most people in America, the dialogue is lose weight. And that's it. You know, that's the metric, too. So the patient, in many cases in America, is set up for failure. They come back and they've lost, 1 pound, or maybe they've gained 2 or gained 7 or lost 7, whatever. It's never enough in the minds of the doc because the metric is so difficult. And so we want that metric to be how many servings of fruit and vegetables have you eaten a day for the last 3 months? It's just changing that dialogue about what you're going to talk about with the patient. We care more about the quality of calories than the amount of calories, and the quality of food, less processed. We want people to go back in the kitchen and cook for themselves. So that's kind of what we've working towards. I don't know that we feel that we've got the curriculum perfect yet. That's part of the idea of collaborating with other medical schools, is for us to do better.
Mm-hmm. And so it'll evolve as you go along. And is there any, will there be anything in the future with studying food in the program, or is it more culinary?
Well, we've already done
based?
some of that. Leah, you want to talk about what some of the research the culinary students have done?
We've done some really interesting culinary, and I think this ties back into perhaps what you were trying to ask, was how we were influencing maybe local chefs and restaurant culture. So we did some. We have interns from Johnson & Wales come, and we try to give them a really hands-on, valuable experience that they won't get anywhere else. And a large portion of what we're doing is research to, one, hopefully prove that what we're doing is actually making a positive impact, or if it's not, how can we change it? But we are also doing some research around people's perception of food, people's perception of healthfulness and flavor. So we did some interesting blind taste tests on sodium perception, but people didn't know what they were tasting for. And they tried 3 different New Orleans dishes.
Restaurant dishes from, out of cookbooks from chefs.
Local chefs, that they're still serving some kind of rendition of that in their restaurants. So that we thought maybe it would have some sort of accuracy. We did a nutritional analysis of the food, found no surprise they were exceptionally high in sodium, and we
exceptionally high. Like one of the dishes had 3,900 milligrams of sodium, which is almost a teaspoon and a half.
Yeah, you're only supposed to get 2,300 in a day. In a day. Yeah, so this.
Wait a second, you're only supposed to get less than a teaspoon of sodium a day?
About a teaspoon a day.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
You sure about that?
So maybe
you want to
I'm sure about what you're supposed to get, not what you are.
Is that one of those
getting.
fads that you're going to be talking about 10 years ago? I used to tell everybody on the radio that now we know buckets full are great for you.
I think we've just changed Ray's perception. You were asking about perception change. I think we've just succeeded.
Unfortunately, my long-term memory is so poor, I'll forget before we leave.
It's maybe because of the amount of sodium you eat.
Because of that sodium. That's what's doing it.
It's a small point.
Oh.
So
hair products.
Where are we again?
The results of this.
So what we found was we reduced the sodium by 15, 25, and 35% in these dishes, and we did a blind taste test, and we asked people their perception of saltiness, sweetness, sour, just so they wouldn't know what they were tasting for. We found that the majority of people actually preferred the reduced sodium versions of the food.
Not just the majority. 72% reduced the.
Now, how big of the was the
That is
sample?
It's
exciting.
it's a small.
No. I meant
the
I meant
sample
the
size.
testing sample.
Oh,
I mean, how many
100,
people?
105.
Were
in
these
the
all
cohort.
medical students?
No,
Were
they're
they were normal people then?
They're
Yeah,
people
normal
from.
people. We invited whoever wanted to
Whoever
come.
wanted to come. Mostly faculty, staff, from the med school. You and me. I mean, real people.
But I mean, it was statistically significant. The
Oh
difference
yes,
was high.
quite.
That's amazing.
And the most fascinating thing about it was that the higher the sodium in the dish,
Yeah.
the more you could reduce it, and people would like it better. So the highest dish, which was about 3,900 milligrams a day, the reductions were. And all we did was the students just reduced the sodium by reducing added salt.
Huh.
So they didn't do any flavor balancing or anything where
okay.
you might, if you were, say, McCormick or,
Right.
are you trying to recreate the dish with very low sodium, you might ramp up the acid, et cetera. And the reductions were 15%, 25%, and 35% reduction in sodium, but in
Now, did
added
they-
salt.
Okay, did they like the lowest
Yes.
amount? They like the lowest amount of the choices.
The higher the amount of sodium in the
less they
dish,
liked it.
in the original dish, the more they liked the lower.
reduction.
So the chefs need to
reduction.
learn that people will actually prefer it, and it'll be healthier.
Well, and the interesting
But I
thing.
mean, now we could probably factor for other people too, right? We could do it by class, for example. Like it may be that there's socioeconomically, maybe certain there could be differences there. Could do it for out of towners versus natives.
Could
maybe
be.
if you grow up in it in an environment with
Be
high
very
salt.
different, yeah.
Could
There
be
would
very
be different, and I think there's clearly some differences in the literature, in the nutrition literature about the socioeconomic piece, because if you eat more processed food, you definitely get more sodium. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
And there is excellent research that says your taste buds will learn that the more you reduce sodium, the more you will think that salty food tastes too salty.
Yes.
Sweetness is very similar.
Sweetness is very similar.
Well, yeah.
So
we all have that experience. You drop soda,
Yeah.
and I cut out soda altogether 5 years ago. Now I hate it.
and all,
And
and
within
all
a
of
few weeks, I
exactly.
hated it.
And
It's
all
disgusting
of a
to
sudden,
me now.
and sweeter things are sweeter
Yeah,
for
yeah,
you.
right,
There's no doubt.
exactly.
And so our taste buds learn with all five of these, all five of your taste buds: the umami, the salty, sweet, sour, bitter, etc. So, and great food is not necessarily about just reducing salt. It's about that perfect balance between those five. If you've got a dish where you can taste, just a little bit of umami, a nice umami hit, and some saltiness, and a little bit of sweetness and sour, and a bit of bitter, that's a great dish.
And that's really what we, that goes along with our overall message. You don't need to rely on fat and salt to make a delicious, flavorful meal. You shouldn't have to rely on fat and salt, which a lot of people do. And it's not that the enemy is butter or fat and salt. And I would never not add salt or, something salty to a dish. But it's about finding that balance to where it enhances it but doesn't necessarily mask it or overcome it. It's just helping to bring the flavors out.
Right.
And
of the
y'all
dish.
have done similar things with the community. I mean, that's as important to the programming, right? To have the students work with
Yeah.
Well, that's the coolest
real
part.
people.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you would just get all the doctors trained in this way, and that means you go to the doctor and you feel guilty every 2 years that you go, and he says cut back on the salt and makes no change. But if the chefs are actually buying into
But-
this
I'm
too,
talking about the community.
But
though,
also,
like
if-
the
okay.
people
we
living
teach-
in our city.
Exactly. So what we do is we've developed a curriculum where our medical students go out and teach the community how to cook and how to eat healthy. And the cool part about that is, Margo, is exactly what you're saying, is that the medical students then have out in the community as part of their service learning, they have the practical contact with the patient as it were, and they learn that dialogue in the first 2 years of medical school, because what we're teaching them is not to talk about, I want you to reduce sodium.
Right.
That doesn't mean anything.
It's
to
an
people.
abstraction,
It's an
right.
abstraction.
Yeah.
We want them, we don't want them to say, eat a low-fat diet or get more fiber. I want them to say, you'd be a lot better off having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day for lunch than you would be going to Subway.
Right.
Those are the practical things that, and if one of our students tells their patient, have a PB&J on whole wheat bread every day for lunch instead of that Subway, you've just reduced their risk of dying from all causes by 25%.
That's wonderful.
It's huge. It's
Wait,
huge. So these
let's stop there because that's a fantastic point. I love that. I want that to be the quote over the.
Yeah,
but
and we
have a segment we need to do right here.
All right,
so that's
yeah.
perfect.
Coming up, we're going to go off the menu. We're going to ask you a couple of questions. A question you wouldn't be asked at a culinary school or in a job interview, at least not at a job you'd want. So, Dr.
I've
Harlan,
had a lot of very interesting jobs.
But before we do, that, Ray and I would like to get to take a moment to thank some of our sponsors this evening.
And actually, you know what? I got an idea. Let's have them read it. Yeah. Leah, would you like to read our sponsor part there, and then we'll ask Dr. Gourmet to read the second paragraph that says Ray.
All right, so I'm starting here.
You're Margo. I'll be
Okay,
Ray.
let's see.
Actually, can it be Margo?
All right.
She's a lot better looking.
What?
No, that's not true. That's not true.
So-
Everybody thinks that, but you don't have to say it.
All right, let's see. We would like to thank the folks at Petite Pedicare because they understand that when you're at work or school, some pets are fine going to a kennel or doggy daycare, but others prefer the comfort of their own home.
It's true.
If you need someone to give your pet loving when you're not there, is it Petty?
Pet care. Petite pet care.
Petty Pet Care are insured, bonded, Red Cross Pet CPR, and first aid certified. But most importantly, they love animals.
They do.
You can find Petty Pet Care.
Petite Pet Care.
Petite. Sorry.
Ray's throwing you
Pet
under the
Care.
bus here. You're
Their
doing wonderfully.
website at Petite Pet Care. That's PETIT PETCARE. That's why I keep screwing it up. .com, or call them at 504-300-9PET. And sorry for messing your name up.
That was pretty
you
good.
may have just lost your sponsor.
No. All right. Well,
I would have practiced before.
do you have a new dog?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, when you get one, bring it to Petite Pet Care.
Petite Pet
Petite
Care. I
Pet-
will.
Okay.
Thanks also to our friends at Magic Box Toys, a toy store with toys for everybody, from infants to grandparents. You can find them online at magicboxneworleans.com, where there's details about in-store events like free Rainbow Loom classes, and you can find Magic Box Toys on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. If you go visit Magic Box Toys on Magazine Street, Uptown, near Jefferson, tell them Ray and Margo sent you, and you get 10% off everything in the store. That offer is good right now through the end of May, so drop by into Magic Box Toys and experience the magic for yourself.
He won.
Oh, he wants my job.
Yes, I think y'all should take
Damn it.
over. You have a beautiful
Yeah.
voice. I see why you're on air.
You know he's
Charm.
he's done this a lot.
And Margo, I think we have another one that they need to be mentioned.
If you're on Magazine Street, why don't you go on over to
Monkey Hill Bar.
yes,
Oh,
and
Monkey
they
Hill
have
Bar.
drink specials that I haven't started yet, but I think I'd do a little
She's
better
had a
if I
few
had
too
a beer.
many. She's had a few too many of those specials tonight.
Happy hour is every weekday from 3 to 8 p.m. $3.50 well drinks and $1 off beer, wine, and signature cocktails.
Okay, as promised, we're going off the menu with our special guest, Dr. Tim Harlan, and his plus one, Leah Sarris. Sarris. Crap.
Say it for us.
It's Sarris. It's
Sarris.
It's like Harris
Like
with an
Sarah.
S.
Yeah.
Okay, Harris.
You're
Sorry
a Leah,
about that.
You're
do
a,
that. Let's
you're a
all do that again.
Leah-saurus.
I
Saurus.
like Saurus.
You know what? Yeah, I always say, yeah, okay. Okay, as promised, we're going off the menu with our special guest, Dr. Tim Harlan, and his plus one, Leah Sarris.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to ask them
Dr.
each
Harlan.
a question that normally would not be asked in culinary school. Go ahead, Margo. He's ready.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
Which would you choose? To not be able to exercise but consume a perfectly healthy diet, or have the perfect exercise program but you must consume terrible junk food?
That's a fantastic question, Margo.
That's a mean question. So, Leah, you want to answer that for me? What do you think?
He'll tell you he loves food more than anyone that you know.
But actually, I'd probably choose the exercise. Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Surprise.
I know that sounds terrible, but I'm a bicyclist. I mean, I love to bicycle, and I bicycle long distances, and I just really enjoy bicycling. And it's the
Okay.
interesting thing about what we do. And while our core competency is food and eating healthy, and it's what I do as a physician, exercise is incredibly important, and it's a really essential part of being healthy. So,
Which person's going to
can
be healthier,
you be
though?
healthier? I don't know that I have a really definitive answer for that.
A person eats Doritos and sits on the couch. I mean, exercises really well, or somebody who the reverse. Which is going to?
It's probably about dead even is the thing. When you look at the literature, you might be a little bit healthier with the exercise than the food, actually.
Huh. Okay. Now for Leah, your question that you must answer. This is better than the first time you were on, though. You had book of questions
Oh,
last
yeah,
time.
you've changed it.
Yeah, we changed it up just a little bit.
All right.
I
think it's
wanted
an
to go
improvement.
back to it.
Yeah.
It's very
what
scary.
was the question last time?
Do you remember what your
I
question
don't
was?
remember the
Okay.
question.
Good,
Like
you
your
weren't
short-term,
traumatized.
like your long-term
You were
memory.
traumatized.
Mine also sucks.
Well, question tonight is, what is one of your guilty diet splurges? What's that you're willing to admit?
That
on
you'd
the
be
air?
embarrassed.
I'll admit anything. I
that-
have no shame.
to tell your students that.
No, I will tell anyone anything as
Well, it
far
better
as
be
my
good,
food
then.
habits, and that's that I am no saint, just as no one else, and it's all about balance and making the right choice most of the time.
Circus
so-
peanuts? Like, what is it?
I really have a thing for buffalo wings. I have really
That's
good
not that
buffalo
unhealthy.
wings.
Those are great.
Oh no!
I mean,
That orange is all
have
natural,
you
right?
looked at that?
are they like
Talk about sodium.
Yeah, and sodium and butter and lots of saturated fat, tons of calories. They are not healthy.
At
I
least
love
there's
good
it's some
pizza.
food. It's not like you're saying like some processed thing that isn't even a real food product. I mean,
Like Fruit
cheese
Loops
whiz
or-
or Fruit
No, I
Loops
mean
or-
another thing that I really, really love so much that
Mac.
I can't have it around is Nutella. I can't. I can't have it in my pantry. So April, who you met,
Yeah.
actually keeps a jar of Nutella at her house for me. So when I've behaved, I can have a spoonful of it.
like a peanut butter sucker, like
Yeah.
a Nutella sucker.
You know what I do? I dip celery in my Nutella, and that way and carrots. It's very nutritious that way.
I
yeah.
can't. I can't have it because I'll just eat it. I'll just eat the whole.
Oh,
the
Nutella
whole
is so
thing.
awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, the first ingredient is sugar.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah, it's bad. There's a
bad.
really interesting
But it's
article
so
on
delicious.
Well,
okay.
I could ask some more silly questions, but I would like for Dr. Harlan to tell us. He brought us these wonderful books. Just Tell Me What to Eat: The Delicious 6-Week Weight Loss Plan for the Real World. Can you tell us about your book?
A little bit. I don't think we really came here to talk about the book.
Okay.
I just brought you that because I like to bring gifts. I grew up in the South. The book's, this is my last book, my most recent one, and it basically, what Dr. Gourmet does and what this book does is it translates Mediterranean diet principles and the Mediterranean diet literature for your American kitchen. So, practical foods, things that you want to eat, like hamburgers and spaghetti and fettuccine Alfredo. It's a 6-week plan that if you follow the plan over the course of the 6 weeks, it teaches you pretty much everything. It helps rebuild your pantry. What does a great looking healthy pantry look like? There's pretty much every technique in all of the recipes: how to braise, how to broil, how to saute, how to boil, etc., poach. So it's my last book.
Well, thank you for bringing
Absolutely.
it in for us.
It's a great book.
And on your website, you have a lot of information.
Yes.
First of all,
We have literally thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of content. I think at last check we had about 8,500 pages of unique content.
Have you
on
written
the
all
website.
that, or is that?
Most of it. Most of it. Yep.
Okay, so that is basically 100 books.
It is. It is. There's a lot of
about 50
information
of
there.
those,
There's a couple thousand recipes probably. We do a 5-day-a-week email newsletter that we send out to about 125,000 people. And the newsletters each day are a little topical. Monday's a new recipe in a column, and and Tuesday is Ask Dr. Gourmet. On Wednesday, we review some aspect a recent article in the literature, in the nutrition or medical literature that might be translated, as you were talking about earlier. On Fridays we review convenience foods. We were talking about having to eat junk food, as you mentioned a minute ago. I'm pretty realistic. I think that people are going to eat convenience foods, things out of the freezer case at the grocery store, et cetera. And so what are the better things to eat? And our motto on Fridays is we eat bad food so you don't have to.
And y'all, you have people actually tasting foods and
we have a little tasting panel, and my amazing wife Morgan is the webmaster for Dr. Gourmet and runs the enterprise. We have a number of people who write for us. We have some programmers who work on our software. We have a really innovative piece of software that creates 2-week menu plans, completely with shopping lists. So it takes all of the guesswork out of it for you. If you go in, you put in your information. If you don't like something, or maybe you don't, you have celiac disease or something like that, it'll create menu plans for you based on particular health conditions, et cetera.
Now, there's a lot of media physicians. There's a lot of doctors that do bits in different news programs. I remember growing up, there's another Dr. Tim, right? Timothy, what was his last name? Timothy on ABC forever, for like 30 years. You know the guy.
Yeah, I don't watch that much TV, unfortunately.
Guilty, I don't either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, that's not true. Let me rephrase that. I don't watch much broadcast television like ABC or CBS, except for Survivor.
There you go. Wow, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, wait, I want to know why Survivor.
I don't know. I started watching it in 1999 or whenever it first came out, and I just there's something. I mean, my undergraduate's in anthropology, and there's just something about vicarious participation, because I would never do that. I mean, I would never. I mean,
you're not an adventuresome person, or
I'm not a
kind of
camper.
adventure,
Can you imagine me camping?
This is a guy who won't sit in economy in the airplane. So.
Yeah, I don't. I'm a bit of a travel snob, and there's something about the whole vicarious participation in these people who are living on a desert island for 39 days. It's just one of those things. But I watch a lot of very. I mean, I watch House Hunters International. Do you like that show?
Actually, I don't mind
love
that show.
Yeah. I love that show. So.
Do you travel?
But I don't
a lot?
watch ABC. I travel.
A
great deal.
Cable as well. There's a lot of doctors. Do you have any that you just despise?
Oh no.
Come on,
I don't
us.
speak. I don't talk negative on radio about anything.
You're just here to celebrate good things.
I would never talk.
Can't get
And
you to go
it's
negative.
interesting. No, I think it's interesting. Yes, there is a tremendous amount of quackery.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of quackery on the airwaves, both radio as well as certainly a tremendous amount on the internet and on broadcast television. And there's some very, very popular broadcast personalities who embrace things that I would prefer them, and most of us physicians would prefer they not embrace. The hardest thing I think about having an MD behind my name is having scruples.
Right.
I mean, it's really tough having scruples, because I could get really, really rich. And a lot of people do with an MD. But
yeah. Now, so is there a TV physician personality that you like a lot, that you particularly love?
Yeah, it'd be hard.
Side?
Again, I'm not.
Who's the guy that has the program? It's like an hour.
Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz.
If I sound like I'm being evasive, it's because I am. Okay. No, I don't watch enough of it to really comment thoughtfully.
Okay. That's understandable. I'm a preacher, and I haven't watched a televangelist in 20 years probably. So it could be the same thing. I guess it's analogous, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I've just forgot my question.
I'm sorry, it was me. It was my fault. Go ahead.
It was the pompadour.
Back to the fumes from that pomade.
Yes.
I love that word, pomade. It's like a really jazzy word.
Don't get me
It's
started.
really swell, that pomade,
Grant's
especially
gonna kill me
in
if I
the.
do this. No, don't do it.
Okay.
Change subjects. Quick.
Sorry.
But unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our show. But I want to get in a few more. Let's get in a few more questions.
The producer says yes.
Because I am fascinated by the fact that even though it is maybe it's not alternative, but y'all are doing something that has been a long time coming. To me, it has nothing to do with, but food is so important to health and everything, everyone's well-being. And the fact that you're a research-based physician and, you know, y'all really are bringing new things to the students, and it's about time. And I'm glad it's not based on something, but just great food, the importance of food. And so I wanted to ask you, doesn't a lot of the medications that we are given today, aren't they derived from food? And
Some are, or plants, certainly fungi, other. You know, some of the most innovative things come from inside the bark of a tree. Cyclosporin, which is which is a anti-rejection drug for transplant patients. Digitalis, you know, comes from foxglove. So yeah, there's some foundation in the plant world and some foundation in the food world. I think most of what, you know, the important thing for us and the important thing for our mission is that it's really about the food first, and so it's kind of neat that you get that. We really stress that this is about eating great. You know, it's just great food that's great for you. It just happens to be great for you because it's great food, and not necessarily things that you're not familiar with or things that you wouldn't like to eat. So yeah. There is a lot to be said for the lack of this kind of education for medical students, for the community. I think many people, our experiences, people don't know how to make a shopping list and go to the grocery store and cook for themselves. We had one of my favorites is that we had this lady who, when I go to classes and I talk to the community, especially, I ask this. I love to ask people, you know, what are you doing here? Why would you come to this? What is it about this that's fun for you? This lady said she was going home to cook breakfast. It was the breakfast class. She was going home that Saturday. This was a Thursday, to cook breakfast for her husband for the first time ever, and they've been married for 35 years. Wow. For the first time ever.
Because he always makes breakfast.
No.
He made everything.
No, I'm just kidding.
He made everything. She was too unsure of herself to cook in the kitchen. She just needed a little bit of kitchen confidence.
Huh.
And one experience with y'all, these experiences with y'all, transformed her life, because that's the beginning of a new.
Well,
to me,
and we see that piece with the food, which is important. But then what we want to happen is we want people to eat really great food, and we want to teach them how to cook and eat great food. And then because they're doing that, they just get healthier because of that. It's not like, oh, we want you to, you know, eat a certain way, or, you know, as I was saying earlier, it's not about low fat or low carb or this. It's just about eating great food.
Well, y'all, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on Midnight Menu Plus One. We know that y'all's time off is precious with all the things you are both involved with. So we really wanted to thank you for joining us tonight on Midnight Menu Plus One.
And our special guest again has been, on Midnight Menu Plus One, has been Dr. Timothy Harlan, and his Plus One has been Leah Sarris. You can find out more about the Goldring, what do we call it again? The
Goldring Center for Culinary Medicine.
At culinarymedicine.org.
Did you hear that? culinarymedicine.org. Oh, you got the...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
It is nice.
There, other people are going to be jealous of that. All right. Well, thank you. You can find out also about that by going to links on itsneworleans.com. Good night. Midnight Menu Plus One is produced by Grant Morris, Margo Moss, and me, Ray Canada. Our technical producer is Chris Keogh, and our director of everything else is Mary Ross.
Thanks to our sponsors who made tonight's show possible. Petite Pet Care, for loving care when you're not there. PetitePetCare.com. Magic Box Toys. Experience the magic at Magic Box Toys on Magazine Street. Tell them you're a Midnight Menu Plus One listener, and they'll give you 10% off on your purchase.
Now, hey, if you'd like to be a sponsor of Midnight Menu Plus One, get in touch with us at our website, itsneworleans.com, or just email us at sales@itsneworleans.com.
And if you'd like to be a guest or suggest a guest for Midnight Menu Plus One, you can do that on our website too. You can find photos from tonight's show, check out our blog, and all sorts of other great stuff on itsneworleans.com, including our other shows. Out to Lunch, Happy Hour, Vietnola, True to the Game, and Mindset.
And you can connect with me and Margo anytime by following Midnight Menu Plus One on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
The awesome audio quality of this show is brought to us by Chris Kehoe's Magic and PreSonus Audio. More information about all the wonderful sound recording equipment PreSonus makes is at presonus.com, presonus.com.
Midnight Menu Plus One is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsneworleans.com. For all of us here at Midnight Menu Plus One, thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next week around New Orleans Podcast Dining Table. Till then, I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margo Moss. Good night.
You know Labor Day signals the unofficial end of summer, but not the end of your outdoor projects. Lowe's helps you do it right and helps you save with Labor Day deals throughout the store. Shop now and get 2 bags of Stay Green Potty Mix for $12. And keep your lawn looking neat and trim with a Craftsman 2-cycle 17-inch gas string trimmer, now $20 off at just $119. Whatever's still on your to-do list this Labor Day, do it right for less. Start with Lowe's. Offers valid through 8/28. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii, U.S. only.